Go for it.
Okay. So I'm TJ.
You make sure you stand.
I'm TJ, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the Beatles. So real quick, does anyone here know who the Beatles is? Awesome. Okay. So I imagine that you've all heard the Beatles. You all know at least like maybe one song you've heard on the radio, but everyone asks me like why the Beatles are this great band. What makes them so great? Why they recognized? Why they're so influential. So I'm going to talk to you about who they were, why they were so important, their contribution to music, and what made them so popular. So just some background, the Beatles are formed in Liverpool, England in 1960. Liverpool is the middle of nowhere in England. It's like they put Liverpool on the map. No one knew what Liverpool was. So the members were Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr wasn't the original drummer, but he replaced a guy named Pete Best. So Paul McCartney played bass, John Lennon was guitar, George Harrison was guitar, and Ringo Starr played drums. So they are highly recognized as the most influential rock band of all time. They only were around for 10 years. Within that 10 years, they sold over 500 million albums. That's very impressive for any band, especially in the 60s. And they have 12 studio albums, 13 EPs, and 22 singles, and they have 4 movies. So they had complete creative freedom, which is pretty impressive because even in today's music industry, if you go into a studio, chances are, you're gonna have some producer telling you what to do. They let them do whatever they wanted, like absolutely whatever. They had any budget. When you go to record an album, usually your record label will give you like $200,000. Like, use this money to create the album, all expenses. They were given blank checks. They would give it to whoever and say, do whatever you want to do, we'll fill out the rest. They had that much money. They made very different styles of music, which I will show you. They stopped playing live in 1965 because of what they were creating. They couldn't redo on stage. They didn't have computers, so they couldn't recreate all the sounds, especially all the orchestral parts they were making. Granted, music now has a lot better production, but for the 60s, they had the best production. George Martin was their producer, so if there's any orchestral things in their song, he's the one that made it. So I'm going to show you just some quick snippets of how they came to be. Kind of lower this. Alright. So this is a song called In My Life. This was very early the Beatles. This is, what kind of gave them their start and whatnot. So that was the very early form of the Beatles, how they started, whatnot. And then, they switched to something like this. Which is great. This is one of my favorite songs. And they put a lot of emotion into their music, which is, I think, great. This is a different version, actually, though. It's hard. Their music isn't on YouTube, and just recently it was put on Apple Music and Spotify. Alright, YouTube sucks. Anyway, go and listen to their discography. I promise you, there's at least one song you'll find that you'll like. Ringo Starr played a hip-hop beat before hip-hop was even a thing. So, pretty cool. So unfortunately, the Beatles disbanded in 1970. There were, some creative differences and whatnot. There's a lot of other stuff. People blame Yoko Ono. I think Yoko Ono sucks. They were arguing a lot because of it. Brian Epstein, their manager, who gave them a sense of direction, fortunately passed away too before their last album. So they all went on successful solo careers. Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney are still playing, and luckily I got to see Paul McCartney live, and that was great. John Lennon was shot and killed December 8th of 1980, right in New York City, and then George Harrison died of lung cancer, November 20th, 2001. And Paul and Ringo are still active. If you ever get the chance, tickets might be super expensive, but I promise you it's a great show. So the Beatles were popular for their innovation, what they did. They created sounds that no one else has ever done. They created music that's never been heard before. They pretty much did it all before it even came today. And that's why they are the most influential band. And that's the Beatles.